Welcome, welcome everybody to the last ever episode 35 of the Breakdown podcast. Today we have a special guest. I don't know if you guys know him. His name is Brandon Miracle, and he's a wonderful person, and
Hi.
he's decided to join us today for this
Yeah.
podcast. He's off of hiatus!
I'm
Brandon,
back
why were you on hiatus?
because I took a 2-week sabbatical to learn Japanese. Yesterday, actually, I took the N5 Japanese language proficiency exam in Chicago. And I just wanted to take a nice chunk of time to focus entirely on learning Japanese and catching up, reinforcing concepts I already knew. And overall, that worked out because I took the test yesterday and I killed it.
He murdered it.
I felt so incredibly confident during that exam. It was broken up into several parts. There's a 25-minute vocabulary part. Boom, easy. You just, what does this word mean? What's the kanji for this term? Just basic stuff like that. Grammar and reading was a little more involved, but I even felt better on that than I felt on the vocabulary.
Yeah.
So that made me feel pretty good. And then the listening quiz, which we had. So I guess I should explain how this works, first of all. They play a CD at the front of the room, which is a 30 straight minute exam where it's spoken entirely in Japanese. They will perform scenarios for you in Japanese and then ask you questions. They'll ask the question in Japanese, then they will act something out and then repeat the question one more time. And then you have to answer it on your answer sheet, and it will move on to the next question after like 4 or 5 seconds. So you really have to be focused and paying attention. On my second practice exam I did for that, I did really well. I got like a 75%, and keep in mind the passing grade is like 35%.
For what? How is
Uh,
that a passing grade?
it's because of the way the test is formatted. If it in the let's see, if less than 10%, or no, if it's more than 10% of people get a question wrong, that question is dropped from the test and is not counted towards the score. If more than 10% of people get a question right, the same thing happens. They're trying to gauge your proficiency in the language and not so much how well you are at taking tests.
Right.
So they've kind of achieved this really cool middle ground for that.
That's good. That's good.
But that's why the percentages are so low, because it's not exactly linear. Regardless, so that's how the listening portion goes. I was in the far back of the room. My assigned seat was as far away from the CD players as I could be, because of course. And I got seated next to like an 11 or 12-year-old boy who was taking the exam, the youngest guy in the room by far. And I was not the oldest person in the room, as it turns out. This kid was a whiz. Like, he was finishing his tests in like 15 minutes, was like half paying attention to the listening and answering. That said, I don't know if he was really answering well.
Right.
But the reason I bring this up is because the listening portion is the only part of the test that I'm concerned about.
Right.
And that's because he spent the entire exam, this portion of the exam, with his little white eraser rubbing the side of the table over and over again with a lot of force and collecting the shavings in a corner of the table. It was rocking the desk or rocking the table. It was moving the table. It was making a ton of noise, and I couldn't focus on the CD because this kid was going crazy next to me. Let's see, there's 24 questions on the listening quiz, and I only need to get like 6 right, but I'm not even sure I managed that.
Right.
If you fail any singular portion of the exam, you fail the entire test. So vocab and grammar and reading were all grouped into one for the N5, and you needed 38 out of 120 points. Minimum in that section in order to pass. And then you needed 19 out of 60 on the listening portion to pass that portion. And then overall, you needed 80 out of 180 points to pass the exam.
Right.
I guarantee you I got over 80 points in just the first section alone
Right.
between vocab and grammar.
But then it's a matter of passing every portion.
Yeah, so if I didn't pass the listening quiz or the listening part of the exam, I'll fail the entire exam regardless. So that's got me a little concerned. But that said, this test doesn't really mean anything. This is just a mark of measurement for me. Regardless of whether I pass or not, I'm moving on to a higher level test next year anyway.
Right.
The only tests that really matter are the N2 and the N1, which are the two highest level exams in the program. If I pass those, I'll be considered a fluent Japanese speaker. I get certification, and I'll be able to accept jobs that require the language.
Right. And at that point, that's when we all move to Japan, right?
Exactly.
That's where we take the break room. Man, that's super. I mean, it's super inspiring to hear that, like, you're really seriously pursuing this. And man, I would love to learn a second language, and I feel like Japanese would be a really good one, right? And we all kind of started together, and then some of us fell off because life is busy and you can only take on so much. But I'm glad that you, and specifically like Joe, are going in together, because it helps having somebody else, to go in with you.
Absolutely. If I didn't have Josiah learning the language alongside me, I definitely would not be taking it as seriously as I am.
Yeah.
In fact, like, I wasn't talking to you, Siri. Like, we started in July, and we took the N5 in December, obviously. So that's not early December. So not even 5 months of study to pass a test that most people don't take until after a year or two.
Right.
That said, I took 3 years of Japanese in high school, and the majority of this has been review for me. But like halfway through the book, that was like new material.
Right.
So I'm getting close to the end of the first volume of Genki, which is the study material or the textbook I'm using. I'll move on to volume 2. After I complete volume 2, you'll have enough knowledge to pass the N4 exam. My goal is to be done with Genki 2 by halfway through next year.
Right.
Then get on to the intermediate level book, which unfortunately there is no Genki 3. Like, Genki is only for beginners. So I'll have to move on to a different book, but my goal is to get through all of that and take the N3 next year rather than the N4. I want to skip the test.
Right.
Yeah. If I pass the N3, that's like my last major hurdle before, N2 and N1.
Right.
N2, I hope to take the year afterwards and pass. That said, N2 and N1 are the two tests I anticipate I'll have to take more than once.
Right, just because at that point, like, you really have to know your stuff. You got to have all that stuff, like, really, really, you got to be pretty well versed to be a fluent Japanese speaker.
The gaps in knowledge between each exam get progressively larger. Like, I can't remember the exact measurement, but I think Josiah said like less than 40% of native Japanese speakers can pass the N1.
That's incredible. I mean, is that just because like the amount of characters like is just so much? Like, I mean, even as a native English speaker, there's tons of words that I don't know or I don't know have existed, right? And I'm consider myself a lyricist and a writer, and so I pursue that kind of stuff. So when I'm writing a new song, I'm like, well, I need something that rhymes with this, and then I like, oh, look at all these other things. How could I, express myself in a different way? And then even then, like, what's the practical use of knowing all of those on a day-to-day basis? Because you're not going to use all those words. I have, certain phrases that I go back to, and so I can't imagine how much more difficult it is for just, anybody who, speaks a language that the written language is just so immense in terms of like the amount of characters, right? We have like 26 characters, and then we just remix them in certain ways where they have to memorize, this is what this looks like, this is what this looks like, and then there's like thousands, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Well, I can even put it in perspective for you. So the N5 exam requires about 800 vocabulary words. And this doesn't account for grammar in any sense. So like we'll leave that out of the measurement. But 800 vocabulary words for the N5 and about 100 kanji or so. And kanji is the third written language on top of hiragana and katakana, but those only have 46 characters apiece.
Right, because those ones are like literally just different like sounds that can be combined into words.
Right, entirely phonetic. As to where kanji is symbolic. As you study more kanji, you will learn like how when two kanji are put together, they attain a new meaning.
Yeah.
Like the kanji for heaven, when paired with the kanji for spirit, can then mean the word for weather, which is tenki. So like spirit of the heavens.
Oh, that's so cool.
Precipitation. Yeah, it's incredible. The more like you learn that about kanji, like the easier it is to kind of figure things out without being told. So it's really just a matter of learning as many kanji as you can and then putting them together and seeing what results you can achieve.
Right.
So as I said, N5 is 800 vocabulary, 100 kanji. The N1 is 2,000 kanji. Kanji. Just kanji. And then 10,000 vocabulary words.
That's a lot.
My next jump, if I were to take the N4 next year, it'd be 300 kanji, which seems like nothing in hindsight.
Right.
And 1,500 vocabulary words. N3, if I really want to get to N3, that's 650 kanji and 3,750 vocabulary words.
It's a tall order. I mean,
well, it's kind of crazy. I had Michaela quiz me on almost all of the vocabulary in Genki 1, and I missed like 5 out of 700. It's incredible like how much you retain. Yeah. In like just regards to a language, because I never in a million years thought I'd be able to remember that much in such little time.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty incredible. I remember even memorizing other things. It's amazing. Just if you take the time, you can memorize quite a bit. I was in productions in high schools, plays and musicals, and I remember one year. I was the narrator for The Christmas Story, and so far and above the most lines of any, person in the show, right? And even then, like we were double casted, and me and the other guy, we couldn't get them all down. Now, if we had tried harder, if I was a little bit more diligent, I probably could have done it. But even then, like the amount we had to memorize and that we did memorize was incredible. And the fact that we did it is amazing.
Yeah. So I've never been in a production like that. So I guess I've never thought about that, but you make a good point.
Yeah. It's definitely a process, and I mean it makes it easier that like, okay, I already speak English, so I just have to say this out loud, and then I have to say it out loud again, and then again, and then again, and then I have to look away from the paper and then try to perform all of that from memory, But it's an addicting experience. It really is, and I think because you put so much hard work into it. And then once you get it memorized, that's when the performance comes out, right? Because then you're not just reciting the words, you're thinking about how do I recite them? What are the inflections I make? How do I express myself? And, that's something I do with my music, right? So, like, I wrote a song recently, and the first time I performed it was really in front of people. I had, lyrics in front of me, right? And even then I was like, I tripped up and I forgot some words. And even then, like, a lot of it was struggling, like, oh, am I going to sing the right words here? And then I performed it, like, on Saturday much in front of people, and I didn't think twice about the words that came out, right? I just sang them, and it was a lot more, I was focusing on the actual expression and whether I needed to pull the song back. And so the song grew just because I didn't have to think about what to perform. I had to think about how to perform it. And then even that builds on. Once you think about how to perform it, then it's like a new freedom about, like, okay, what's the best way, not just what are the myriad of ways that I could perform. It's like, okay, this one seems to be more effective in this way. And so I feel like that'll certainly happen with your Japanese, right? At a certain point, like, you won't have to necessarily think so much about like what are the actual sounds that I need to make, and more of like, okay, I can say this basic idea without much thought, and then I can say it in an even better way down the line because you've had that experience and you can express it in that way.
There was they sent me home with a pamphlet for like overseas study. And like a 4-week program specifically practice for a JLPT exam. But essentially it's like a foreign exchange student program.
Right.
And I was thinking about how, like you said, at a certain point in my studies, I don't have to think so hard about memorizing words. I just have to be introduced to words.
Yeah.
So like if I'm in Japan and I see something and I don't know what it's called, but I obviously I know what it is.
Right.
If I'm with a Japanese friend and they're a native speaker, I can look at it and I can say, "Kore wa nan desu ka?" And they could probably understand that I'm not saying what is that, but rather what is the name for that.
Yeah.
And then I can just, add on to my vocabulary through that and not worry so much about trying to memorize everything. And John Johnson brought up a point I was really interested in. He said, jumping on that character complexity and whatnot, if our thoughts are largely shaped by our words, learning new languages is great for changing the way we think.
Absolutely.
And I have 150% experienced that since re-upping my language study. And it can change the way you think in a variety of ways. It changes the way I think about sentence structure, obviously, because sentence structure is different in Japanese. I remember I was introduced to a new grammar concept in one of the more recent lessons, and I read over it, and it used some words I wasn't quite used to, but it was a grammatical concept, not like vocabulary based. And I read over it, and I read over what it meant, and the book didn't describe why it meant what it meant, but I knew why it meant what it meant intrinsically, and I couldn't quite explain why. Like there are going to be words and there are going to be things that don't have equivalents in English, so I couldn't begin to explain to you why something means something in the first place.
Right.
But I've gotten to the point where I just understand.
Yeah.
It's it's hard to describe. I also, the night before my Japanese exam, I had my first ever dream in Japanese that I can remember anyway.
That's unreal.
Yeah. It's hard to describe, but like I was saying things in Japanese and understanding what I was saying, and I can't recall any of it. For all I know, in the context of the dream, it was just gibberish. But yeah, it's definitely starting to take an effect on my mind.
Okay, I have a similar experience, not with a language, but I have written songs in my dreams. I have definitely written songs. It's generally during a time where I am really consistent about writing. So I'm playing and writing daily. And so when I'm very, very kind of engulfed, in kind of that atmosphere, I will, and then I sleep, and I have a really good night of sleep, and then I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have like melodies that I remember that I've written, you know, in the night as I was sleeping. That's crazy. I would love to be in a position where I take care of myself, because usually when I'm taking care of myself and my sleeping habits are good and such, I dream more. And so I'd love to be in a position where like I, you know, would be able to wake up in the morning and be like, okay, time to transcribe my dream, you know, into an actual song, or at least take elements, you know, because sometimes they're the most like creative dreams, you know, they're the most creative songs like ever. And I was just like, wow, that feels so inspired. And I think it's because I didn't try, you know, it's like, this is just my mind working, and I'm not.
That's what it made up for you.
Yeah. And it's an unreal experience. And so like, yeah,
Wow.
like, you know, we think in English, and we, you know, that's it, our brain just functions differently than somebody who speaks a different language, or somebody who's like bilingual, you know, who was raised around like two different you know, languages and understands both. It's fascinating to think about, and I would love to, I'd love to jump like 100, 200 years in the future, say we like, you know, survive climate change and everything's cool, and we, you know, learn more about the brain and such.
Excuse me, Ran. Is your friend Matthew Toronto from Brawl in the Family? Because you're right, that guy is very talented.
So I totally lost my train of thought.
Sorry, that caught me very off guard.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have like similar experiences. Like, you know, the world's pretty small, right? So the amount of people that you meet and you know, or you know that you've known since forever. Actually, something I'll mention, not about my personal experience, but Keirnan Shipka, who is the actress who plays Sabrina.
Right.
There was an article, they do this article on Pitchfork about like, oh, what is this person listening to? You know, what kind of music is this person into? And they had 3 different songs that she said she was listening to, and that she was really, really into. And the last one was a Phoebe Bridgers song, right? And I'm a big fan of Phoebe Bridgers. I initially knew about her because I went to a Julian Baker show and she opened for Julian Baker. And then this past year, she released a really stellar album. And one of the kind of like singles off the album was listed. And then she went on to mention that Phoebe was a personal friend and that they grew up together, you know? Oh. And it's so weird to think about, like, okay, now here's this actress who is on a very popular Netflix series and she's very much blowing up as an actress. And then here's this artist, you know, and kind of like their respective rights, but they know each other. And I feel like that's going to happen a lot for like us as well, just because we know so many talented people. Like the likelihood that 1 or 2 people is going to get like some significant traction, you know, sooner and later, like it seems pretty likely. And yeah, I won't name names, but like I already know people who have worked with like larger music acts, you know.
I was about to drop a name, but I think I'll withhold it now that you've said that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to throw out too many names, and I don't like to brag about them because like that's their life, and I think that's super cool. Right. But it doesn't make me inherently cool just because I know these people, you know. But it is cool to see all the success that does go on.
Wait, hold on. I will say that I think I'm a cooler person for having you as a friend.
I mean, but it's different because like some of these people you don't know like uber well, you're not super close to, right?
Right.
So I try to be careful about like who I mention because I don't think it's terribly important, and I'm not and I'm not trying to use their gains for my gain, right?
Right.
That's what I want to avoid, because
Sure.
that it feels selfish in a way that I don't want to be selfish, right?
Yeah. No, that's totally understandable. Ooh, excuse me. For whatever reason, my water keeps coming back up. Does water do that?
I mean, sometimes other things come up. I mean, so if mostly you've been drinking, water, like that would be, cool.
John says, I think I'm cooler for having friends that 1,500 people on the internet subscribe to. Oh, thank you. Well, Japanese isn't the only life event I wanted to talk about today. When's the last time I've been on this show?
Dude, I mean,
Like a month now, right?
something like that. I mean, so I did the show solo last week, and then we did, on the breakdown.
The breakdown is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
of.
no, I mean, last breakdown I did that solo, so yeah.
So I haven't been on for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, this is new. I got my insulin pump. It's all hooked up to me. And I've had it on for we're just shy of 2 weeks now. And this thing has changed my life. I was looking at my average glucose for like the last week.
Right.
And it was like 137 or something, 134. I don't remember the exact number, but I put that into an A1C calculator to see what my average glucose would be, or my A1C would be, which is a 3-month average.
Right.
And it pinned me at a 6.4. And it like late last year I was at a 9.2.
Right.
Normal human levels are 6.5 and below.
Oh, so you're like a normal person.
I'm a regular guy again.
Man, that's incredible. Like, it's incredible to think that, like, just because of technology and the understanding of the human body, that, like, it's almost like you're living a normal life. You know? I mean, obviously you still have diabetes and you still have to make certain concessions, but, like, that's great.
Yeah, I've also noticed just a general improvement to my mood, and I feel better in general. Like I don't feel tired as often.
Yeah.
Just that fatigue that comes with high blood sugars and diabetes. It's been a fantastic change, and despite the very expensive bill sitting in my basement, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
I've got my continuous glucose monitor coming, the Dexcom, which will pair with my insulin pump to make decisions. So basically what it does is it looks at my blood sugar and then determines whether it needs to raise my dose, lower my dose, or stop administering insulin altogether in the event of a dangerously, almost fatal low.
Right.
Like some of the issues I've been having is I'll experience overnight lows now, which are scary because, if your blood sugar drops to a certain level overnight and you end up going into a coma while you're asleep, there's no coming back from that.
Right. Well, at least no. Well, I mean, is that like a guarantee that you're not coming back, or there just are no guarantees that you're coming back?
There are no guarantees. Like if there's no one there and no one finds out or they don't notice until morning, it could be too late.
Right.
So the Dexcom, if it sees that my blood sugar is going low overnight, it'll tell my meter, "Hey, you need to stop that."
Right.
So I'm just kind of waiting for that to come in to see how much more of an improvement I get for all of this. But even without it, it's been a major change, and I couldn't be happier right now.
Right. That's super cool.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up because I know we've talked a little bit about diabetes on the show, and I don't want to be a broken record, but I thought you guys might be interested in that.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of content I watch this show for. So, it's good.
I'm glad.
I don't know. I personally, when I listen to podcasts, I like hearing about people's lives in addition to, all the interesting things. I don't just watch podcasts for the content that's like, oh, this is Nintendo stuff. Let me listen to this. I could go to any number of people to do that, right? But what's the additive? What's
That's
the
why I
extra
like
stuff?
listening to Ear Biscuits with Rhett and Link,
Mm-hmm.
because their podcast really has nothing to do with their show at all.
Right.
They just kind of talk about whatever they're feeling. So
Yeah.
you really get kind of like raw Rhett and Link during Ear Biscuits. So I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about something that came in the mail for me.
Oh. Oh.
Um, it's this.
It's a
Can you
big
guess
old
what
book.
this is?
It is a compilation of kidneys, pictures of kidneys.
It's the Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild creating a champions book.
Whoa, that's
So
thick.
yeah, do
T
you see how
H
heavy
I
this
C C, thick.
is? Thick with 2 C's. A book that I said I was going to eat. Yes, I did say that in the Discord server. Shout out to our Discord server. Link in the description. So yeah, as you guys know, the Goddess collection just wrapped up. You can see them over on my shelf over here in the video version. But it doesn't; those books don't feature really anything in regards to Breath of the Wild, just because of the timing in which they came out. So they released an entire book for Breath of the Wild by itself, and I ordered this like half a year ago.
Half a year?
It's been a long time.
I mean,
Like,
was that like a
pre-ordered it.
pre-order?
Yes.
Okay.
So this just showed up at my door, and I had no idea what it was. Then I opened it up. Of course, it was the book that I had completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
But it's got a lot of like beta stuff and whatnot. You know, the kinds of stuff that you expect
Right.
from the Goddess collection, but just very detailed and very specific to Breath of the Wild. And I wanted to do a video on this, but unfortunately, it arrived during my big Japanese study sabbatical. I still
Right.
might do a video on this a little bit later, as well as the Super Mario Encyclopedia, which is sitting right there.
Yeah.
But those will come in the future, and I really just want to get into this book now that I've got some free time.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to show that off. Oh. But this is the Breakdown Podcast, and you know what we do on this show? We talk about the TV shows, anime, movies, video games, and all that other stuff that we do during the week. In my case, it's been the last 6 weeks. Yeah, and we're just going to kick things off with TV and movies, and really it's just TV for me so far.
Yeah, I only
That I can
watched
remember.
one movie in the last 2 weeks, and I was surprised I actually watched it. Because at a certain point, I was like, do I really want to commit all this time? And then I did, and I think it was worthwhile.
Yeah, I think what I watched was pretty worthwhile too. First of all, I'll just mention The Conners real quick, which is the continuation of season 9 of Roseanne, sans Roseanne Barr.
How did they write her out?
They killed her off.
They killed her off.
Right before season 9 was canceled, they were following a storyline in which Roseanne was hoarding pain pills. Like it was a serious thing in the context of the show,
Right.
And like she wasn't telling Dan. Dan didn't have any idea about it. And that's kind of where the show left off when it got canceled. So they had kind of opened a door, and with the Conners, they just kind of walked right through it. They said Roseanne had died in an overdose, and that was the context of the first episode. It was how everybody was dealing with that, specifically Dan.
Right.
So it took kind of a dark turn. It's not anything that, the Roseanne series isn't known for at this point. It's always taken a very real look at things,
Right.
which I've always appreciated. And that's not lost with the Conners. Like, I hate to say it, and at the same time I don't hate to say it, but the show doesn't feel any different without Roseanne.
Right.
It's kept its identity. It centers on Darlene now as an adult. Occasionally going back to Dan and how Dan is dealing with life as a single man again. So yeah, I just kind of was catching up on the last few episodes, and I'm really enjoying that. So I'll definitely be watching that, and for as long as it goes. I don't really know how long to expect it. That said, the Roseanne season 9 premiere was had incredible ratings for ABC.
Right.
More so than I would have expected. But I mean, that said, Roseanne lasted for 9 years.
Yeah.
Um,
It's pretty.
in
Pretty
addition to
long.
that, I caught up on Riverdale, my not guilty pleasure. Um, I really like Riverdale. I don't care who you are. I know that that this show appeals mostly to women because of I think his name is KJ who plays Archie Andrews and
Yeah.
Cole Sprouse.
Also,
Cole
it's
Sprouse
just
specifically
yeah.
for my wife.
Well, and then it's just like it's the kind of format that like it's very dramatic and
Yeah.
it's cheesy and it's petty and like I those kind of shows just tend to do better with women and you know that is
And
what
Brandon
it is.
apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I caught up to the most recent episode. I'm currently in the midst of season 3, which is airing right now. And I like it just as much as I did like during the first season. I know this is a CW show, and the CW shows tend to just kind of have like a fallen off point.
Yeah.
And I'm cautiously awaiting for that to happen. That said, like I still think the show's fun. I'm still having a great time with it. I love all the characters. They've like elevated a lot of the side characters from just side characters to characters that have their own plot lines
Oh, okay.
going forward. Like one in particular, Kevin, the son of the town sheriff. He gets a more active role as the show goes on, as well as Josie from Josie and the Pussycats.
Wait, Kevin's the gay friend, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
and the sheriff is his dad.
right. Okay, that's what I knew that. I knew that because I'm like I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes in at this point. I've kind of I've been watching other things, right? But I digress.
To those asking if Riverdale is good, critics seem to think it's good. I think it's good. It is like just a little bit campy, and if you can get with that, I think you'll have a good time.
Yeah, I think you really gotta like the cheese, right? There's plenty
Yeah.
of cheese in there. Especially, man, Cole Sprouse. His performance is so full of cheese. But
He won an award for his performance this year.
yeah, but I like it. I do. 5
yeah.
episodes in, I look forward to actually catching up. Though it hasn't hit me as hard as like Sabrina hit me. So
Right, and I mean Sabrina is like kind of self-contained to Netflix, whereas this is trying to appeal more to broadcast television,
yep.
and you can definitely see the differences there. But yeah, I would give Riverdale a recommend if you're looking for something fun to watch on TV. All of it's on Hulu. In fact, you can watch up-to-date episodes on the CW app for free. That's how I'm watching season 3 right now. I don't even have to subscribe to anything for it.
Okay.
That's nice.
Wait, Riverdale's on Hulu?
Riverdale's on Hulu.
Oh, I've been watching. I guess it's on everything because it's on Netflix.
Oh no, it's on Netflix. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say. I'm like, I don't think I've seen it on Hulu.
I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking of. No, I was thinking of Connors. Connors on Hulu.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely check out Riverdale. And now that I finished Riverdale, I did what I promised Logan I would do, and I've started The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Literally last night, I watched the first episode of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and hoo boy, this is a good show.
Right? It's like it didn't wait to get good. It was just like good right off the bat.
It definitely didn't wait to take that dark turn.
Yeah.
And kind of get the plot rolling. And I felt the same way about Riverdale, which kind of just plunges you right into the first thing happening. Yeah.
Right.
Like within minutes of the show starting. So I definitely appreciated it for that. One thing I really wanted to mention is I feel it this way about Riverdale as well, but I love the colors in this show a whole lot. The reds are very like forward, obviously because, you know, Sabrina wears that red coat.
Right.
But I just love how sharp and forward the colors are in the show. I really enjoy that. It might also help that I'm watching the show in 4K, which I noticed like immediately. I was like, wow, that looks nice.
Yeah, they've been shooting like all their new content in 4K.
It definitely shows.
I'm guessing you pay for that like top tier subscription for Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but it adds value to my setup downstairs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, like I said, I'm just one episode in. I finished it up right around my bedtime last night. Um, but my God, like I love. You mentioned that you love the relationship between Sabrina and Harvey.
Hmm.
Totally down with that. Like even in the first episode, I was like, I totally see what Logan was talking about here.
It's just the
Why is
romance.
Harvey such a good dude? Is he real?
Yeah, I don't. You can't even believe it, And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I see a lot of my own personality
Yourself.
in Harvey. I see
Okay.
myself in Harvey.
I love the character of Sabrina. She's like she represents a strong female lead. At the same time, that they're not making the focus of the show necessarily.
Hmm.
They're letting that support just the show on its own, um, which I think is pretty cool. The show takes place in Greendale, by the way, which is a neighboring town to Riverdale. And they talk about Greendale a whole lot in Riverdale. And the reason I bring this up is because they've mentioned the possibility of the shows intertwining at some point. I don't know like how heavy that will be, considering one's on TV and the other one's on Netflix.
Hmm.
But an event took place in literally last week's episode of Riverdale where a character has left the town. And I think they're going to show up somewhere in the Sabrina sphere at some point. We do have new
Ooh.
episodes coming out in April. They could
Ugh.
also show up in the Christmas special coming out.
I'm very excited. I want more Sabrina. Like I think about that show and there's like a physical reaction. There's like a like a breathe, I get the shivers and maybe it's just my infatuation with Kieran and Shipka. And maybe it's not even Kieran and Shipka. Maybe it's Kieran and Shipka as Sabrina that I'm so infatuated with, because I'm definitely infatuated with Sabrina. Um, I love everything about this show. I can't even express it. It's like, it's like you trying to like say like, oh, this is how this would mean in like Japanese and English, right? It's like you can't. There's no words. It's not one to one. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a chemical translation. Like I can't translate that into English.
So I don't have like huge opinions on Sabrina yet because I've only watched one episode, but I will tell you I love it and I definitely can't wait to watch more tonight. Also because like there's nothing filling the Riverdale fix right now. Because I watched a lot of Riverdale and now I just don't have any, and I'm having trouble like dealing with that.
That's how I feel about Shokugeki right now. I just want more Shokugeki.
So yeah, Sabrina's kind of filling that role for me, and I'm imagining I will have the exact same problem once I run out of episodes of Sabrina.
There's only 10 of them.
At least I get a weekly dose of Riverdale, and there's only like 5 or 6 episodes in the season, which gives me like 20 more weeks worth.
Mm-hmm.
Season 2, I think, was like the full 24 or 25. Season 1, I think, was half of that. I expect it to just be that again, like the full 24 or 25. I hope
Right.
so, because I like it. Let's see. John says, how'd you like Ambrose? Also, online, they have confirmed that there will be a crossover. Well, that's good news for me, because I like both these shows a whole lot. As far as Ambrose, was he a character that was in the original comic? Or was he introduced in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic? Because I don't have any history with this character.
That's a good question. Because he's Sabrina's
Cousin?
Cousin, right?
Is he the son of either Hilda or Zelda? Because I couldn't figure that out. Is that even explained?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Doesn't look like it.
I like him. I like his devious act, where he was like, "Are you sure we don't just want to kill him?" When talking about the what's his name, the principal of the high school, where they like swarm him with spiders.
Right.
That's really all I have of him right now. But I like how he was going out of his way to assist Sabrina with things that maybe his aunt or her aunts would not be cool with.
I really like the character of Ambrose. They definitely dig a little bit more into him as time goes on.
Hmm.
To me, he kind of represents like that middle ground of like, I get what you're going for, Sabrina, but like I also have knowledge of this other world that you're skeptical of, and like you need to stop being so dumb sometimes, you know? Because again, none of the characters are perfect, and then none of
Hmm.
the characters are like all evil either. You know, it's not like there's no like hard to one side, and um, maybe for a few characters, but for the most part, they kind of land somewhere in the middle. They're
Yeah,
they're all susceptible to mistakes and
Riverdale kind of handles their characters in the same way. Like a character you might consider a villain very early on ends up not being a villain like 2 or 3 episodes later.
right.
Like they introduced Veronica kind of in that space at the very beginning of the show because there was that
Woo!
yes, but also Betty had just confessed her feelings to Archie in the beginning of the series, or
Uh-huh.
tried to. And then Veronica shows up and kind of throws a rut in all of that, or throws a wrench in all of that.
Mhm.
So my initial impression was that she's going to be a villain, and then turns out she wasn't. There's a
Right.
character in season 2 of Riverdale that is like a constant back and forth on that scale. And I absolutely adore what they've been doing with this particular person. I look forward to talking with you about that later on.
Okay.
But these shows definitely align in the way they present information and the way they handle their characters.
Well, I think they have the same showrunner.
Oh, do they?
I believe they
I
do.
didn't know that.
So, and I think that's why it's kind of a given that they're going to cross over, because like a
Mhm.
lot of the staff, is quite literally the same. They're just on two different platforms.
Sorry, Baconator really got me. He says, reminds me when I thought Waluigi would be a villain, and then he became my hero.
Oh god.
That was great.
We're gonna ban comments. You guys are not allowed to comment anymore.
You're getting a pat on the back for that one. That was good.
Come to the Discord server for your cookie, your free cookie, your break room cookie.
Your free complimentary break room cookie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a ton more to say about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'll watch more tonight, and I'll definitely tell you how I feel on the next episode of the show.
Yeah.
And that's all I've watched as far as TV and movies.
Yeah. So as far as TV goes, it's really just been those first 5 episodes of Riverdale. I'm in love with Archie. Very much in love with Archie. I'm also in love with Veronica. I love Veronica.
How could you not? Like,
Ugh.
my wife gets to talk about how much she loves Cole Sprouse, but like, I'm head over heels for Veronica.
Yeah. There was that. I think it was like, I don't remember what episode. Maybe it was the first episode. Maybe it was the second. Because I remember watching like part of a Riverdale episode, and I think it was like the first episode. Here I was thinking it was like somewhere in the season. No, it was like the first episode. But there's that party scene with Veronica, and they do the whole like 7 minutes like in heaven.
Oh yeah.
And my heart skipped a beat. I was like, I should be Archie right now. It's not fair. It's not fair. But I liked their reactions, because like obviously, like, again, they're imperfect human beings. They're also representative of teenagers, even though they totally don't look like teenagers.
Oh no, they're not
No.
by any stretch of the imagination.
But it's like, it's understandable. Like, you put two attractive teenagers like in a closet together, and even though they're trying their best, because obviously they're very aware of Polly's feelings, towards Archie and such.
Or Betty's.
Oh, Betty. Oh, Polly's her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get that. I'll get them lined up eventually. But, and there's that whole like after thing, like, oh, Betty left the party and she was upset, understandably, and but it's not like they necessarily did anything wrong, but they were still like aware. And then, it speaks to the kind of character that Archie is. Archie wants to do everything and please everybody and be the really good guy, and then that really conflicts because he has to make certain decisions. And so far he's been very considerate, and then there's that whole like debacle with his romance with the teacher, which is very scandalous.
They don't waste any time getting into that.
No, and then getting out of it as well.
Is it resolved where you're at?
Yeah, yet? It's like resolved in the 3rd or 4th episode.
Okay, I couldn't remember how fast they get through that.
It's like really quick. I was like, I wonder how long they're gonna drag this on, and turns out she's not who she said she was. And I was like, what was the purpose of that other than to like tear Archie up? Maybe that was the utility. Or maybe it comes back around in some other way. I'm not sure. I'm only 5 episodes in. I think I was like turned on Netflix, right? And I was like, oh, I should probably finish this episode of Riverdale. And so I finished that, and then I fell asleep to Star Trek.
I'm trying to remember like what the main story arc of season 1 is.
I mean, so far it's
I'm
Jason.
drawing a blank.
So far it's Jason and his death.
Oh, duh. Okay, yeah.
It's like the thing they introduced right at the beginning of the first episode.
Yeah, it's Jason. Okay. I was like,
Jason!
What was it?
Jason!
I think it's because of how much I enjoyed season 2.
Okay.
That's not to say I didn't love season 1. It's just I really like where they take season 2.
Okay. Well, then I'll probably... I imagine that my consumption of the show will probably pick up at a certain point, Maybe I'll find myself more engulfed in the show and feel a lot more compelled. I just reminded myself of something else that I watched. I watched the newest episode of South Park, which this season of South Park has been pretty good. I don't really have much to say on it. It's inappropriate, but I love it. And then I also, I asked, we opened up a new channel in the Discord, question of the day. And the last few days, I've just kind of taken upon myself to ask that question because I've had some pretty compelling ones. So I got, this will be good. This will, start up some conversation. My question one of those days was like, what is a TV show that you go back to time and time again? What do you like? I talk about Futurama all the time is because I watch Futurama all the time. Like it's constantly in rotation. And you pick up on new jokes and all these different things, and you really get intimate with the show. And another show that I, revisit from time to time is Star Trek TNG. Mm-hmm. And man, there's a lot of cheese in Star Trek, even after like the original series, especially in the first season of TNG. A lot of cheese, a lot of corny effects, and even in the late 80s. But I love it to death. It's so much fun. It represents a lot of ideals that I'm very much a fan of. Okay, can somebody ban Baconator? Can we ban Baconator? Actually, I think that discussion's kind of a moot point because they're so different, Where
they're very different.
Star Wars versus Star Trek. Star Trek is very much sci-fi, where Star Wars is very much fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah.
And they're trying to accomplish different things. But I love Star Trek. Love Star Trek TNG. It's my favorite of the Star Trek shows.
I don't think I ever managed to answer that question when you asked it because I couldn't figure out what it was for me, and I think I finally figured out while you were talking. There's 2 of them. Okay. One is Dragon Ball Z Kai. I've watched Kai front to back like 4 times.
Really?
I love Kai. I love the original series, but whenever I want to go back and watch Dragon Ball Z, I watch
cut out
Kai.
the fat.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic vocal performances.
Oh, absolutely.
Such a better script. Just overall, I enjoy it more than the original show. Um, and if you like the original show better, I totally get it. Like, if you're a product of the '90s, you probably like Dragon Ball Z, and if you're me and you just want to experience the show the way it was intended, you like Kai, or you like both. It doesn't matter. Um, but the other show, and it was really hard for me to figure this out, but I think it's Full House. You can put on an episode of Full House in front of me, and it makes me feel good. Like I used to watch that show all the time, on Nick at Night as a youngin,
Uh,
like right before bed. And at one point in my life, like I got invested in it, and I watched it every single night, and I watched it all the way through, several times. But it's like it's just a show that you can put on and make me feel comfortable.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely the feelings I get with Futurama, you know? And I think that's partially because I think that show is just so well written. All the jokes are
Hmm.
so good and they're so particular. I think there's a bit of a rebel within me that also draws me towards Futurama. I remember story time with Logan. Back in the day, I had a very short-lived friendship with this guy Quentin. Okay,
Hmm.
I don't, I didn't like Quentin after a bit because he was kind of a B. Uh,
But we won't get into that.
but I remember one night, like I was young. I don't know. I was probably younger. I was not even a teen at that point, right? And I was sleeping over at his house, and he put on Adult Swim. Okay,
Okay.
and conservative Christian Logan. Oh no! Don't put on the dirty shows and the adult
This was your
animation.
awakening, wasn't it?
It really was, and it's funny because I don't remember what episode I was watching, and like I just remember like having like conflicted feelings about it in the sense of like I like what I'm looking at, but I feel really guilty listening to these dirty jokes. But ever since then, like I remember that so vividly, like watching that show and feeling so like, ooh, I shouldn't be watching this, but I am. Um, and maybe that's also part of it. But then like I got
Hmm.
older and I was like, I should Futurama's on Netflix. I should watch this. And then I watched it and I was like, wow, that was really, really funny. And I think it's one of the best written adult animated shows like I've ever seen. Like it's just so consistent. Like there's not a bad episode. Not even close. Like it's just so
It's
masterful.
it's also not especially vile, like when you really
No.
get down to it.
Yeah, like I mean there's not like they don't cuss a ton, they don't make like a ton of dirty jokes, and any of the jokes that are made are they feel really tasteful in the grand scheme of things. They're creative, it doesn't feel lazy.
While I haven't watched like a large amount of Futurama, I did watch it for a while when I was a kid. Well, not a kid, but maybe like middle school.
Right.
And I remembered like really enjoying it, thinking it was really funny. And it had a lot of heart too, which is something I wouldn't
Oh
typically
yeah.
assign to a show like this.
The very final episode, um like obviously it's still very funny, but like the very like pretty much the last sequence is just really heart-wrenching. And well, not even heart-wrenching, it's not like depressing, it's more of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just pulled that. And I don't want to spoil it because I'd love to see the day where you actually get around to watching like all 10 seasons of that show.
I do
uh,
plan on some point going through it. It's hard because my wife isn't so much into that kind of humor.
yeah.
Like as much as I loved Rick and Morty, she just couldn't get into it.
Right.
So I try not to watch those kinds of shows around her because I know she's not enjoying herself.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely on my list. I remember you talk about like heart wrenching. Isn't there like an episode I've seen? It was one of the few episodes I've seen where like there's a dog involved.
Yep, I
Right?
knew it. I was like waiting for it. I know exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
one of the few
Everybody talks
episodes
about.
I've
Yep.
seen, and that really got me.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember it very well.
Yeah. Futurama has made me cry. Definitely. Definitely.
I like how you knew the episode I was referring to.
Dude, I tell you, I have digested this show over and over again. Like you could mention it like an episode, and I'd be like, oh, I can find that episode. I can find that episode. Or like I was having a discussion with my roommate, about like the Supreme Court justice, like the justices in the Supreme Court in general. And there are several episodes with like the Supreme Court. And I was like, oh, I got a good one. And then I like went and I found it and I was like, let's watch this. It's also funny seeing Snoop Dogg as a head who is also a Supreme Court justice in the year 3000. Man, they have so much talent in that show too. Like Snoop Dogg actually voiced himself in that show.
That's awesome.
There's what's his Leonard Nimoy is in several episodes as a head who voices himself. There's an entire episode that features like the original cast, like a large portion of the original cast of the original show, all voiced by their respective actors.
Wow.
So I think that's also partly due to the fact that Matt Groening, is huge in animation and just huge in general. So it's probably pretty easy to get some of that talent,
You kind of reminded me, in reference to the cast members, they're doing that in the Connors right now, because the character of Becky was played by two different actresses.
Right.
So the original actress of Becky from the beginning of the show reprised her role as Becky for the show now. But they brought the new Becky, or the old new Becky, back as a new character who has a relationship in regards to well, I don't want to spoil it, but she comes back and she meets Becky, and the two Beckys are just in the show together now. And it's very self-aware about it too, but yeah, it just reminded me.
Actually, I just reminded myself as I've been meaning to listen to more of Rob Paulson's podcast, Talking Tunes.
Good show.
And I'm pretty sure I was like certain there was an episode with Billy West on it.
Yeah, there is.
And that was the one I was like, man, I want to listen to that so bad, because Billy West on Futurama plays, Fry. He plays Zoidberg. He plays, the professor. He plays Zap Brannigan. Man, that man is just like an incredible voice talent. Just absolutely an amazing voice talent. And I remember him explaining like Zoidberg, like when he was developing Zoidberg's voice, like what was some of his inspiration. And a lot of the sounds are like, and then the whoop, 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 like came straight from the Three Stooges. And I watched a ton of the Three Stooges as a kid. And so hearing that, you see Zoidberg in like a different light. And yeah.
Speaking of the Three Stooges, I have every single short featuring Curly on DVD. All of them. Which I think is like over 100 Three Stooges shorts.
Right.
I love Three Stooges. One of my favorite memories was watching that show with my dad as a kid.
Dude, same.
We need just to have like a Stooges night sometime.
It's slapstick needs to come back. It needs to come back.
But what else did you watch?
Outside of all that stuff, I watched the movie Downsizing. Which
it's got Matt Damon?
Matt Damon, yeah. I've been kind of keeping my eye on this movie ever since I saw the trailer for the first time, because I was like, oh, that looks like a fun concept. Right?
I really couldn't get a read on it.
Yeah. so I was like, oh, it looks really heartfelt, but I like the idea of like shrinking people down, and I was like, I don't even
his
care if it's a good movie. It looks like a
his
movie I might enjoy.
so his like the premise is that he downsizes, but his SO backs out,
Yeah,
right?
but that's really like a moot point in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
Like obviously it sets kind of like the tone, I guess, for the movie, and
Mm-hmm.
it definitely has to do with relationships primarily, right?
Okay.
And humanity as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the movie begins with the scientists like essentially discovering this process to shrink organic matter, um, and the reason they develop it is because humanity is consuming too much, and when you downsize you need a lot less resources, and so if they could convince everybody to downsize they could save the planet. And
Why didn't they just call Thanos?
I don't know, Ming. Um, but essentially, it's got a real like environmental like theme in it. Though I don't think it's not central. It's but it is one of the points of like, the characters like have to deal with that, and some of it don't deal with it, and some of them are like, this is what it's all about. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I think it was a better movie than I was expecting. When I finished it, I was like, that was kind of dumb. But then as I kind of sat on it a little bit more, I was like, I think I like how they managed that. One, they didn't like. At first I thought it was like, did they mislead us with not talking about the whole environmental thing? But I'm like, I don't think they did. They definitely didn't mention in the trailers, and it was a large aspect of the movie. But it definitely wasn't the focus of the movie, and I like that because it's a pretty, it's heavy, that kind of thing. And they didn't shy away from it.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely, there was a good amount of humor in the film. I Do you mind if I spoil a little bit of it?
That's fine.
Okay. So at a certain point of the film, near the end, the guy who originally developed this process, at the very beginning, he reveals that he downsized himself. So he was the first one. He was like, "This is what's gonna happen. I have to be the example."
Mm-hmm.
And this original like mini like micro person colony, like they visit this colony, and this is where this guy is, um and this guy is super upset near the end of the film because he realizes essentially that it's too late, and there's going to be another mass extinction, and doesn't think that like humanity's going to survive, and it's really a dire situation. So he essentially has like this group of several thousand people that they go into this like mini vault, and Matt Damon almost goes with them, and he falls in love with this one character, and then that's what keeps him from going into it, because he's walking into this vault and they're sealing this door, and then he's like, oh no, I can't do it because like this isn't where my priorities are, and I'm glad they're all like, we're gonna preserve humanity and stuff like that, but there are people out there who need my help, and I want to pursue this one thing. I want to think about myself, and then also all these other people are going to be struggling, and so it was really nice. But when he gets out, like they essentially they put some explosives, to make all this dirt and rock fall in front of the vault. So it's like, that's it. Like, it can't be disturbed, and we're just going to be in here for, however many thousands of years in the sustainable environment.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happens, it's like you forget that they're small because there's a bunch of small people. And sometimes you forget. And then, so it's like, oh no, they all hide behind like these houses. Like, oh no, something's about to explode. And there's just this little the dirt falls, and it's so like they like built it up, and then like the payoff was great. It was great.
It's like that bit from the first Ant-Man where they're fighting like in his daughter's bedroom, like on the train,
Uh-huh.
and like the train like falls over into Ant-Man. It's like huge, but
Right.
like they cut away at the last second. You just see a tiny plastic toy fall over.
Yeah.
So good.
It was a pretty good bit.
Okay.
And it was definitely a heartfelt movie, and I think there's a lot to walk away from it, and a lot to think about. It definitely got me thinking.
Well, I'm glad there was something to chew on.
Yeah,
At least.
it wasn't terribly empty like I was anticipating that it would have been. And then it also didn't go too hard in one direction where it was like, okay, it's like you guys misrepresented the movie entirely, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. Definitely recommend it. It went up on Hulu not too long ago, and that's why I watched it.
Okay, I might check it out.
Yeah. But that's not the only things that we watched. I definitely watched some anime in the last few weeks.
What do you got?
So I've been, keeping up with JoJo. I think I might be a few episodes behind at this point, but I think the current arc is in full swing, the Golden Wind arc. Giovanni is the current iteration of JoJo. And I might have mentioned this before, but he's not like a direct descendant of JoJo. Joscendant. But he's a descendant of Dio, but Dio who took control of Jonathan Joestar's body. So that's how he's connected.
Oh.
But I like his character, and there was like a really gnarly scene where he essentially gets initiated into this this gang, and his goal with the gang is become the top dog and essentially take down like the leader of this organization. And while he does this, he is tasked with keeping this flame lit for 24 hours. And turns out it's part of this one dude who's in prison, so he has to sneak it out of the prison because he can't take anything in or out of the prison. And at one point it goes out, right? And that triggers this this stand, that exists within the shadows, and he has to overcome it. And like this one dude dies because of it, because he relit the flame. And then JoJo has to deal with this. And I can't remember exactly the reasoning, but Giovanni, it still doesn't sink in. It's like I really, really don't like this dude, and he's like this really fat dude, like really big fat dude in prison, and it was the coolest thing because his stand, he can turn like objects into like nature, so he can turn it into animals, or he can turn it into fruit or plants. And so he assassinates this dude, but how he assassinates him is he turns one of this guy's guns into a banana, right? And then this guy, when he goes to eat the banana, like
He shoots
himself. And then it looks like a suicide, so nobody suspects anything.
Not even Phoenix Wright could solve that case.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And that was the moment that I was like, I am so into this arc right now.
That's good.
And I think it's already shaping up to be like one of my favorites, I'm such a big fan of JoJo. I really like it. Besides JoJo, I just started the second season. I finished the whole first season. I just started the second season of Assassination Classroom.
Okay.
And it's funny because I started watching the first episode of the show like a long time ago. Not like a long time ago, maybe like a month or two ago. And then while I was sitting on the couch, my roommate Thomas was like, "Oh, have you seen Assassination Classroom?" I'm like, "I have not." He goes, "You should watch it." I go, "Oh, okay." I started watching it, and I really enjoy it. The premise is there is this tentacled being, right, who essentially destroyed the moon, right? And he is threatening to destroy Earth as well. But he cut a deal with the government, and the deal is I will allow you guys a chance to assassinate me, but you have to allow me to teach this one class for a year. And if you guys can assassinate me, that's great. And so they do, and they develop like particular weapons that will actually be effective against this guy.
Mr. Smiley Octopus Man.
Yeah, they call him Koro Sensei. Koro
Sensei. Okay.
And it's a really fun like contrast because like all the while all these kids are learning all these new assassination skills and becoming better assassins, and they're also like the lowest class at this school, that essentially like they're the outcasts, right? But then all the while like you have this really genuine loving Koro Sensei who like legitimately gives a care, you know, about these kids. And so they develop this weird relationship where they're trying to kill him and they like can't even get close, but then they really, really like him as well, you know? And there's tons of great like humor into it. There's tons of references to like other shows. Like this last episode that I watched, there was a graphic that like essentially was they were parodying like Attack on Titan. With like that one of the first like scenes in Attack on Titan where you had the one Titan who was like breaking down the wall and just like looming and steaming over top of it.
Yeah.
They've done tons of that. Like there was one where I was like it seemed like a pretty explicit reference to like DBZ at some point. Yeah, just very, very good humored. It's pretty lightweight, I think, for the most part. And I wonder how they're gonna finish off the series. I mean, they've already finished the series. I just wonder how that's gonna play out. You know.
Oh, the anime?
Yeah.
The anime's done? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's only 3 seasons.
Is the manga still running? Is there a manga?
I believe there is a manga, and I believe it is finished. Assassination Classroom. But yeah, no, it's quite good. Yeah, it finished, so it ran from 2012 to 2016.
Okay, that's a nice short manga.
Yeah, it's nice to have like a manga and a show that like ends.
Yeah,
because there's so many that just don't. It's like, is this ever gonna like finish up? Like, is there an ending? Like, is this gonna take 10 more years?
72 volumes of Naruto.
Yeah.
Ongoing One Piece.
Yeah, so I believe that there's whoa. Don't tell me.
What?
So there's like 22 episodes in the first, or maybe they made 2 different series.
It might just be a second season, but the show has a different name.
Well, it says Assassination Classroom the second season, but then there's like 108 episodes in the second season. So it looks like it's only 2 seasons, but the second season's just like, oh, maybe it's just 25? Then why did it say 108? Yeah,
108
second.
doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. That was inaccurate. So there's 25 episodes in the second.
Okay.
Second
Well,
season.
that's more reasonable.
Oh, and it's only 2 seasons.
Oh, well, that's even more reasonable then.
Yeah. So it's nice to have it's nice to have some shorter shows to digest every once in a while. Not have to worry about something ongoing.
For me, I actually forgot that I saw Wreck-It Ralph 2 in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll briefly mention that I liked it a whole lot. And if you liked Wreck-It Ralph 1, you will probably like Wreck-It Ralph 2. But if you liked it only for the video game stuff, you probably won't have a good time. Because there's not a whole lot of video game stuff in this movie.
It's a lot of internet stuff, yeah.
Mostly internet stuff, but still good. I do like the first movie more.
Mm-hmm.
But the themes of the second movie are just as good, I think.
Okay.
They also handle some things about internet culture that I found really interesting, specifically like with the virality of certain videos and how people respond to comments.
Mm-hmm.
What comments can do to people.
Oh yeah.
So that hit pretty close to home. So yeah, I definitely give that a recommend. In addition, I saw 2 anime in the last 6 weeks, and both of them were movies.
Yeah.
I went to see Pokemon: The Power of Us, which is the second movie in the Pokemon reboot film series. This is the follow-up to Pokemon I Choose You from last year. And it sees Ash and Pikachu showing up to a festival at a town that holds an annual festival honoring Lugia and how Lugia brings wind to the city because they're all powered by windmills.
Mm-hmm.
So Lugia will show up at this festival every year and blow wind in the direction of the windmills to power the city. So Ash shows up, and then for the rest of the movie, it's really not about Ash anymore. It's called The Power of Us, which is a kind of like a play on words because the Lugia movie from the original series was called The Power of One. But this movie really doesn't have anything to do with that. The only connection they were drawing was the fact that Lugia was the legendary. But essentially, it centers around several people outside of Ash and just their individual stories. Mm-hmm. You have a scientist who's not very brave or very outspoken. You have a young woman who is trying to capture a Pokemon for her bedridden brother. You have an old lady who can't stand being around Pokemon, who's having a problem with Pokemon following her around. You have an old man named Callahan, who has an issue with lying. He's basically a pathological liar and will lie to make himself look good for his niece. He is the embodiment of Mr. Satan, by the way, like the same character profile.
Right.
And basically, it's about how all these characters overcome their individual strife. And Ash doesn't really play into that a whole lot. The movie is really more about these other people. And I kind of appreciated that. In fact, Ash was the most uninteresting character in the entire movie.
Huh.
He was so two-dimensional, always super optimistic and positive about everything. It never seemed like anything in the movie fazed him.
Right.
And that was really not good. I'll just say that. That aspect of the movie I did not enjoy. Ash was a lot more dynamic in Pokemon I Choose You. Mm-hmm. And just in general. But I think they're kind of trying to play off that Pokemon Sun and Moon Ash, which I don't think was the right choice. That said, I really enjoyed all of the other characters' stories and how they kind of come together to overcome a singular problem, which I think most people would kind of expect from the name of the film.
Right.
This is probably one of the... How should I phrase this? I haven't enjoyed a Pokemon movie this much in a long time.
Right.
I think is how I'll phrase it. I liked it more than Pokemon I Choose You, and I liked it more than just a lot of Pokemon movies in general, because it focused a little bit more on the storytelling than it did anything else, which the Pokemon movies are not ever really known for. So I think in just that sense, I really enjoyed it. The animation was really good. Uh, uh, they like got away from that kind of sharp, angular look that they're always known for, but they didn't like go full Pokemon Sun and Moon. They kind of like achieved a new middle ground and just kind
Right.
of got a new look for the film, which I really liked. Very colorful. It was fun. Not all of it was great, but a lot of it was good. It also introduced the legendary Pokemon Zeraora, which was like added to Sun and Moon like last year, but
Okay.
now I got context for it. Uh, so that's really all I have to say about Pokemon: The Power of Us. Oh, wait. There was not a post-credit scene. Well, there was, but there wasn't the same post-credit scene in our version of the movie that Japan got.
Really?
There was an additional scene in the Japanese version where you hear a character say, "Who am I?" followed by Mewtwo Strikes Back, the logo for the original movie appearing on the screen with the word evolution tied to it. Because next year's Pokemon movie will be Pokemon the movie Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution,
Oh.
which will, as far as I know, be a continuation of this kind of rebooted film series,
Right.
but covering the Mewtwo story and maybe doing something new with it. Kind of similar to Dragon Ball Z Broly or Dragon Ball Super Broly,
Right.
but that's all I know. Uh, the more important movie of the two I saw was Mirai, Mamoru Hosoda's newest film, the follow
Uh,
up to The Boy and the Beast. And I absolutely adored it.
I wish I had the means to go out and go have gone out and see it, but I didn't. So
I don't think it'll be long before we see home release.
yeah.
But essentially, it takes a very different approach than Hosoda's other movies, which are a little more fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
Mirai is very much a slice of life movie.
Oh boy.
It's about a little boy. He couldn't have been any more than like 4 or 5 years old, and his life with his millennial-ish parents. And basically, it's about them raising him and his kind of defiance as a toddler.
Right.
It's like the Terrible Twos incarnate. But in the very early part of the movie, a sister is born. His sister Mirai, who the movie's named after. And basically, he struggles with what you would expect. He's jealous of her. He doesn't know how to handle there being a new person in the house. And basically, it explores what he does as a result of that. However, very early on, after like having a fight with his mother, I think, he goes outside to where they have like a tree in the center of their house. They have a multi-tiered house, and in the center of their house is like a little outside garden area.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out there, and this is kind of where the fantastical elements start coming back. They like do this really cute magical camera shift, and then suddenly he sees a person he's never seen before, who I don't even remember their name, actually, unfortunately. But what I'm getting at is that he meets these people, and they kind of help him through his troubles.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they base them on their experiences. And I don't want to spoil too much, but if you watch the trailer, eventually he meets his older sister, who is his baby sister.
Okay.
And they kind of use Mirai as an older sister to help the young boy Kun kind of figure out why he's being such an idiot.
Right.
It's very hard to explain without like revealing too much.
Right. Well, I mean, it's Hosoda, so I imagine that I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, you will.
I liked Boy and the Beast. I loved Wolf Children. I
Me too.
also loved Summer Wars. Um,
Have you seen The Girl Who Leapt Through Time?
I think I did. I think I watched that at some point.
Okay, because that seems to be the movie Hosoda is most known for.
Right. I just my love for wolf children knows no bounds.
Oh, me too. I absolutely adore that movie. Um, that said, Mirai is definitely the most different out of any of the movies he's done
Good.
yet.
Good. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I was also privileged with a like, kind of an interview segment after the film ended, where you got to kind of see Hosoda's inspiration for the movie. He also spent a while talking about 2D animation and how much he's like struggling to keep that alive because he wants to rely on CG as little as possible.
Right.
So many movies are these days, like Pokemon, The Power of Us is loaded with like background CG characters that just look so ugly.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely certain aspects, especially like in anime films, that 3D is used really well and effectively.
hmm
I
The Evangelion
Yeah,
movies.
I was about to say Evangelion movies, their use of 3D is really really great. But then also there's tons of still 2D animation in there,
That's
and
one reason like I'm super excited for Dragon Ball Super Broly. Is just like how much they're focusing on hand drawn art.
oh yeah, the teaser looked just super super pretty and solid, and
hmm
just that animation of Goku jumping back and forth, it just looked so fluid and just so like the animators knew what they're doing.
We're definitely in for a treat come here in a month.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And that's all I did for anime. I know I kind of hobbled through that, just trying to find words.
Yeah, man.
But that brings us to video games. And I've done a few things in the last 6 weeks that I would like to talk about. First of all, I'll mention I beat Super Mario Brothers 3 for the fifth or sixth time. Just did it in one night. I only played Worlds 1, 2, 7, and 8. I used one of the flutes in World 2, just kind of skipped to the end because I was just playing casually at the time.
Right.
Fun fact, it's the first time I've ever beat it on NES. I've only ever beaten Super Mario All-Stars version or the Game Boy Advance version.
Right.
um, so that was fun. I did that with one of my friends, Jimmy. He just kind of watched, and we basically were game grumps, and we're just like BSing back and forth.
Yeah, I
while I played the
also
game.
I also touched Super Mario Bros. 3 in the last 2 weeks. Though my experience is a little bit different because I'm still in the first world and I really suck.
In Mario 3?
Yeah, I'm bad at some of these older games. And it's funny because I think Mario Bros. 3 is one of the more accessible like NES games, by
Yeah.
far. Um
World 1 is especially like pretty easygoing,
yeah,
but it does ramp up pretty quickly,
right.
like going into World 2 and over. So yeah, you just need a little more time with it. I mean, I was privileged to grow up with these games, so
Right.
I just have a stroke of advantage in that sense, I think. In addition to Super Mario Brothers 3, I finished Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, and I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the most fun I've had playing Pokemon in 20 years.
Oof.
I know a lot of people aren't going to like that I said that, but I can't help how I feel. Like, I don't entirely miss um, battling wild Pokemon. I think what we should do is try to achieve some kind of middle ground with the next game. Like, you can approach a Pokemon and you can throw a Pokeball at it, or if you choose to battle it first, maybe there's some kind of bonus that you get if you take the extra time.
Right.
Um, but I just loved going around, seeing Pokemon in the wild, capturing the ones that I wanted to capture. I mean, which was still, me trying to catch them all, but I wasn't sitting there catching the same 15 Pidgey over and over again.
Right.
Um, and the game is just gorgeous. The music is fantastic. I just bought the album on iTunes. There's 122 tracks. 61 tracks in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and then 61 of the originals from Pokemon Yellow were included. So that was kind of cool. I didn't even realize that when I bought it. I just found
Yeah.
out after. $10 for all of that. Um, yeah, I beat the Elite Four, and then I did some post-gamey kind of stuff, such as battling some spoilers, which I guess I'll just leave for now since the game's still pretty new. And there's a few things I want to do still. I do want to finish my Pokedex. I have like over 110 Pokemon captured, which does not leave a lot left for me. And this isn't counting like Alolan forms and whatnot, but I think the toughest will be capturing Melton and evolving it into Melmetal, because you have to do that almost exclusively in Pokemon Go.
Right.
But once I get that, I'll switch it over to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and try and complete my Pokedex. I've never completed the Pokedex ever, but I'm so close this time that I really want to finish it.
Right. And then it's an easier way of completing the Pokedex, right? Because one, if you have, the Pokemon in Pokemon Go, you can just transfer it over. And then two, you get to choose your encounters. So again, you're not like randomly, oh, here's a Zubat. No, here's another Zubat. Oh, here's another Zubat,
Yeah, and you can kind of force things to happen too. Like if you use a lure, you can cause rare Pokemon to spawn. If you capture the same Pokemon over and over again, you'll start a capture combo, which increases the experience points you get, which makes training your Pokemon really easy.
Yeah.
But also, the more that you do that, the higher the chances of a rare Pokemon and a shiny Pokemon are of spawning.
Right.
So it's made shiny hunting easier for people too. It's not something I'm particularly into, but if you're into that, they've made it a little more streamlined. Streamlining, just in general, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee do a lot of that in a lot of ways. And I want to see a lot of this continue forth for the rest of the series. That said, I do want some of the stuff that like more of the hardcore players like to come back, because I don't want them to be, just left to the wayside.
Right.
And that's what I anticipate Pokemon Generation 8 to be when we see
Right.
it. Probably in like 4 months from now.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like we'll probably get a reveal here relatively soon.
In addition to that, I also played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg. I don't think I got a chance to talk about that on the show yet, have I?
I mean, that was like not even that long ago, so no.
Okay, well, I had to make sure. And I got to play like 7 rounds, I think. We got there at I think just before 10 a.m. And we got to play our first round within the first 20 minutes because the line was really short. And it was short for a long time. We just kept getting back into line over and over again to play Smash. And I played with King K. Rool. I played with Incineroar, with Young Link, a match with Mario. I think I did a match with Ike. And then I did an additional match with Young Link. And I had a blast. I love all the new characters. Incineroar specifically, I really enjoyed playing as. Me, Joe, our friend Dylan, and Paul. We decided to do a all Incineroar match on one of the times we got through the line, and Final Smash meter was on, so you just kept seeing Incineroar's Final Smash over and over again. As we played around with the character for the first time. We ended up on the Nintendog stage, which was the best stage we managed to get because the stage selection was random. The first match we ended up on was Spirit Train, so that made it a little hard to get used to it, or used to the game. And then we got like Wrecking Crew once, and I was not into that so much. We got Luigi's Mansion, which I was okay with. I was fine with playing on that stage, but Nintendogs, or the living room stage, was like the most normal stage we ended up with. And that was our Incineroar match. It was really hysterical watching 4 like tigers brawl it out in a living room with a dog in the background. But the game feels fantastic. I am so excited to play it on Thursday with you, actually.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be bringing at least one GameCube controller. Maybe I'll bring like several just in case anybody else wants. I mean, are we planning to have at least enough for an 8-player setup?
Paul should have enough controllers to make up what I don't have. I have 4, and I think he's got 5.
Okay.
And Joe is switching over to the Pro controller, so that's one less GameCube controller we need.
Why?
He likes it more.
Okay.
He's also into the HD Rumble.
Okay.
To answer your question, Ran, Incineroar is one of the coolest newcomers, in my opinion. He's just so fun. He like poses after every attack, so every time you land a good move, you just get to watch yourself. You get to watch Incineroar enjoy the fact that he did it. His throws are super strong. He's just a character that we've never had in Smash Brothers before in terms of his fighting style. And I can't say that as much for like King K. Rool or Ridley. Inkling is probably the only other like super unique newcomer that we got. Well, I guess the Belmonts too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely enjoyed that. Can't wait to play on Thursday. On Friday, I should mention, Logan and I will be streaming some Ultimate at some point during the day.
Yeah, at the same place. We won't be talking on like across the internet to each other.
Right, we'll be in this room playing on the TV that's right here. So my plan is for us to do maybe some classic mode, maybe play some Squad Strike, since that's a 1v1 mode, and then maybe we'll pop online, do some viewer battles with you guys. Does that sound fun to you?
I mean, I'm down.
So yeah, I'll give you guys the details for that as we get a little bit closer. Because I don't see myself being able to pull myself away from Smash Brothers for much of the weekend, to be honest.
Yeah.
So might as well make a stream out of
There's
it. Right?
gonna be a lot of Smash Bros this weekend.
And yeah, actually, that's all I played. Thought I had more, but that was it. Been studying Japanese.
Yeah. So on my part, I mean, I mentioned Super Mario Bros. 3. I didn't actually play a ton of any of these NES games, but I did touch some of these NES games. And I'm hesitant. I started playing like the original Legend of Zelda, which I've started playing the original Legend of Zelda like a million times, right? But it's not an easy game, and
no, it isn't.
I think it's also in part due to just like the limitations of that console and the kind of game that it was. Some of the controls. I mean, you get to like A Link to the Past is like, I feel like that's really where that series got started. Even though like the original Legend of Zelda was just so different from so many games.
Link to the Past introduced diagonal movement.
Yeah.
Which made a big difference.
Big difference. Also, like the slash across instead of like the poke.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did add that like souped up version, which I think that might get me playing it. They just gave you like a ton of resources right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then,
that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And then I started playing Metroid, and the original Metroid's also very difficult, right? Because
I almost want to say maybe you should play Metroid Zero Mission instead.
I mean, I've been tempted, but I don't know. I'm stubborn, right? So it might take me a few times before I decide that's actually the case. Yeah, like the actual projectiles don't go very far.
No.
Not at all. So you have to get real intimate with some of these enemies to actually get anywhere.
And like Samus's jump is like very stiff.
Yeah,
she doesn't have a lot of horizontal speed.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to go back to some of those NES games. Some of them are okay because again, you know, they're very fitting for the limitations of the console. But I think some of those games are a little ambitious for the time, and they really got going with the SNES era.
Maybe I'll let you borrow what is it? Metroid Samus Returns. That's a good Metroid game.
I'd very much like to play that.
I still have to finish it.
Yeah, outside of that, I I'm trying to. I kind of dabbled in a few things here and there, but didn't play a ton of. I did get a chance. I've been playing, more Red Dead, but then also Red Dead Online launched in beta form in the last few days. Um, and I got on with my brother, and there was a Ethan's an interesting character for a lot of reasons, and especially when you're playing games. And so when you're in an online game with Ethan and you have the opportunity to fight other people and then lasso other people, it was, I'm pretty sure, like the most of probably the 2 hours we played, majority of it was spent accidentally shooting each other and then brawling and then lassoing each other and then hog tying each other and then breaking out and then killing each other and then rinse and repeat. And lots of laughs, lots of fun. You have to gather like $200 to establish a posse, and then when you're in a posse, there's no friendly fire or anything like that. So it's a lot easier to do things when you're actually all in the same group, as opposed to like if you're just online and you're with somebody, it'll like, and you have like say like aim assist on, it'll auto target, like those people, even though you're trying to play with them. But I don't know how.
I'm not going to hurt you for not liking Metroid Prime. I'm just going to kill you instead.
Ooh, yeah. That's.
I jest.
Anyway, outside of that, we'll see how I feel about Red Dead Online as I play more and I get a little bit more invested in that experience. But I should say that I'm almost done with Doom 2016. I am on the very, very final boss. And I'm having a little bit of a struggle. I probably need to be a little bit more attentive. The farthest I've gotten is like, I'm not sure if there's like a second. I can't remember if there's a second phase for this boss. There have been for the last two bosses. But maybe this one's different for some reason.
How many hours are you in?
Enough. Like, I think average is like 10 hours. I'm probably over that.
Okay, because I was going to say, because I'm pretty sure I'm like 10 hours into the game.
Have you beaten Doom?
No. I got very far in it, though.
Do you know what level you're on?
I'm in like one of the later hell stages, I think.
Okay, so not the first time, maybe like the second time.
I think so.
Okay.
Definitely. It's the second time.
I think. Are you like in Titan's realm? It's like super dark.
I haven't played in like 6 months, so I don't know.
Yeah.
220 hours of Doom, Snow?
There is no second phase. Okay, so I've got like. I got down to like the last fourth of his health. I just need to do better about like reading some of his tells and responding appropriately just to stay alive. Because man, I know how to deal the damage, right?
It's just outlasting it.
Yeah, it's I get chopped up and your body parts fly everywhere, and but yeah, I'm like, if I win the next time, I'm like 15 minutes from the end of that game, I eventually looked up, I'm like, how many levels are in this game? I think there's like 16.
It's not very long.
It's not a long game. A lot of fun, tons of fun. Like that game just it controls like butter. Like you just feel like you're slipping and sliding across. And
that was the first game I played when I finished building my PC. Very good choice.
Yeah, it feels right. It just feels like the game should. Yeah. I don't even know what else to say about it. Everything about that game is a lot of fun, especially once you start to unlock some of the mods for the weapons, and then you upgrade like certain things to make like switching weapons faster and climbing things faster, and they just give you like these fun little playgrounds to run around and shoot demons, in.
And
It's
Doom Eternal's on the way.
Yeah, that was one of the big motivating factors. Other than the fact that I felt like I needed a game that was high action and felt really just fun to play. Just very, very kind of mindless, not like thinking too hard, just being able to perform well enough. And I popped in Doom and started playing it. And I was like, yep, this is the game that I needed. Um, and yeah, I can't. I want to finish it before I head up to Chicago / Rockford on Wednesday evening. So I might try to finish it tonight. Because
Wait, are you coming on Wednesday?
Well, I am driving to my parents on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
And then Thursday afternoon, I'll be in Rockford.
Gotcha. I was like, did I have my days wrong?
No, you're good. So yeah, I can't. It makes me so giddy talking about Doom because it feels that good. And I know there's a lot of
It's a good game.
I know there's a lot of extra stuff in the game, but I also just don't see myself playing through it again. You know, like it's been a really, really rewarding experience. But I've accepted that I'm very much not a completionist. You know,
I have a feeling like you would probably like Bayonetta a lot then.
I would like to pick up Bayonetta at some point.
So, I mean, I don't want to say it's more challenging, but it's more aggressively challenging, I'd say.
And I played a little Bayonetta, and I enjoyed what I played of it.
Yeah, but it gives me the same feeling of, just being incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Some games they know what they're going for and they nail it, and Doom does exactly that. And so I've read some of the talk that like some of the creative directors who are returning from Doom 2016 to do Doom Eternal about what they're wanting to do. I am particularly excited about the idea of a large like Hell on Earth level.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, they've specifically said like that's one of the things that they're doing. So I wonder how much the structure of the game will change, or maybe it'll follow this like level format again, just be a little bit more expansive. I do appreciate how like non-linear the levels are as well. At least some of them are especially near the end are a little bit more linear, but there are some of those levels that are very open and exploratory, you know. So I hope they do a little bit more with the exploring. I hope they eject a little bit more Metroidvania into the series. I would be okay with that.
There's already like a hint of it, isn't there?
Just a little bit. I think some of the progression, and you know, getting the progression of like, oh look, you start out with this weapon, and then you get another weapon, and you get another weapon, and then it kind of builds on it. So it kind of feels similar in that way. Though it is much less Metroidvania than something like God of War. God of War, oh my god, that's almost a Metroidvania game.
God of War is one of the best Metroid games I've played in a long time.
It's very good.
I also love Bayonetta 2 more than the first one, to respond to Rand. A lot of Bayonetta talk in the chat after I brought that up.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, that's it. That's what I've been doing these last 2 weeks.
Wow, what a packed episode. That's what happens when Brandon's not on the show for 6 weeks.
A lot to talk about.
Like I said, expect some Smash Ultimate streaming on Friday. Definitely be looking out for that because we do want to do some viewer battles and get you guys involved. I anticipate that stream might be pretty long. That might come instead of a Nintendo stuff. We kind of need to talk about that a little bit later. We'll figure that out. But at the very least, expect a Smash Brothers stream this Friday. Logan and I won't be doing a live reaction to the Game Awards. We're just going to watch it in my basement. We'll have a camera down there in case anything like Super Nintendo spicy happens and I need to hit that record button real quick.
Hashtag Metroid Prime 4.
Oh, please. Or even just show me Bayonetta 3. Nintendo brings anything, I'll be happy.
Yep.
Can we do the stream around 5? I imagine it'd be later in the day because I think Logan and I also just want to spend some time with the game for a while too.
Yeah, yeah, there'll definitely be a little bit of both, right? Off
Yeah.
and on camera.
I need to work on the next episode of Zelda Randomizer. We went a little bit later than I thought we would, so I don't think I'm going to be able to get that up tomorrow. But it would be up on Wednesday, and the Thursday episode will still happen on Thursday, so don't worry about that. Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, maybe I should have it premiere earlier in the day on Thursday because Logan and I will be watching the Game Awards during normal premiere time.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
But I'll get working on those so you guys can watch it. Still expect 2 episodes a week every week, even after Smash comes out. I will still be working even when there's a game I want to play real bad.
It's the name of the game. It's the name of the game. Work, work, work.
Yeah, and you can also expect some streams from Logan in the future because I am hand-me-downing him my old Elgato.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So yeah, don't worry. Make sure to stay tuned to our Twitter as well as our Discord server to find out any details as we get them all solidified. But definitely Friday stream for Smash Ultimate. Very excited to do that. I'm also very excited for Thursday night to play Smash Ultimate. Oh my god. Like, now that my Japanese test is over, this is the only thing I can think about. This is going to be literally the worst week of work in my entire life.
Yeah, I will constantly walk into the living room in the evening and see Thomas sitting there watching like Ultimate footage and commentary. So it's... The hype is very real, and it's very in my face, and I am unreasonably excited.
This has been a very good 9 months of waiting for Smash.
And it's almost done. We're almost there.
I can't wait. I'm sorry, Snow. Snow has to go to school on Friday. Oh, I should mention. Did I mention this earlier on the show, or did I tell you, Logan?
What
about my boss?
No, you told me, and you didn't talk about it on the show.
Okay, so this will be the last thing before we get off. But earlier today, Paul and I work at the same place. So Paul was in my office before he left for the day, and we were just chatting about Smash Brothers and some other stuff. And then my boss walks into my office, and he's like, I just put 2 and 2 together. You have PTO on Friday, and that's the day that Super Smash Brothers Ultimate comes out. He had realized that I had made my vacation to play a video game.
Oh, yeah, I think that's not uncommon. I was having a discussion with my roommate, and one of his friends, was wanting to get off for that day and talk to his boss about it, and she's like, I don't think we need you. Yeah, go ahead and take that day off. And so just everyone's taking off. Everyone's like, this is like a holiday, for all the gamers, all the nerds. So
I'm lucky enough that my boss is a gamer too. I mean, he was like raised on Street Fighter and more arcade games and stuff, but he still games today. He's got a Switch at home. He plays Splatoon. Maybe one day we'll hook up on Smash and see who's the better Smash player. I'll be like, Nick, if I win this match, I'm the boss. See if we can make that happen. Anyway, guys, it's been great talking with you guys. I really missed being on the show, actually. So it feels good to be back here. If you want to help,
I'm glad you're back.
Oh, thank you. If you want to help support us, we do have a new Super Chats feature that we unlocked. Thanks, YouTube. As well as memberships, channel memberships. On the same button that you get your Super Chats, there will be a link to our YouTube gaming page where you can join our channel as a member, and you'll get some exclusive perks for that, including, I think, member-exclusive live streams is something we can do. So maybe we'll do some member-exclusive Super Smash Brothers viewer battles.
Yeah.
Definitely some stuff to think about. But you will get an exclusive emoji. You can use Logan's kawaii face if you join as a member, so think about that. But if you'd rather help us in other ways, you can also support us on our Patreon page. We'd like that too. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you. Yes, that emoji. Thank you, Logan. So, man, I'm really scatterbrained today. I'm sorry. I've been working real hard the last 2 weeks. But yeah, make sure to join our Discord server. We'd love to talk to you guys even more. And we're pretty active in there right now, so definitely a good time to get in there. And I want to say there might be an episode of the podcast on Friday. I don't think I can commit to that at this point, but we will be streaming Smash Ultimate, so look forward to that, as well as the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time randomizer this week. Now that I've plugged literally everything I can think of, Logan, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything else to say. I think this is it. I think we're done for the week. Yeah. Congratulations. Welcome back.
Thank you. どうもありがとうございました。じゃあまた。
What, you're not going to do the outro?
I was saying it in Japanese, and I was going to let you do it.
Oh, okay. Well, this has been the
can do it. You want
Breakdown
me to do
Podcast.
it?
No, I'll do it. I got it. This has been the Breakdown Podcast. This has been the Breakdown Podcast with me, Logan Welliver, and him, Brandon Miracle. Don't break your backs. Breaking the games. But for now, we have 4 days until Smash Ultimate. Goodbye.